Hello there.
Hello there. Hey, everybody. I'm Jeff with Fuller Embroidery Works, and we have Justin Armenta from JA Digitizing Studios. And today we will be going over, let me read the titles on the screen, Live Digitizing Halloween Appliqué Design.
Halloween Appliqué Edition.
Edition.
Yes.
Halloween Appliqué Edition. That's okay. I'm allowed to get it wrong like 87% of the time, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. But we'll go ahead and grab a few comments here. We have Cindy King joining us from Odessa, Texas. Hello. We have Ramona joining us from Illinois. Hello, Ramona. We have Mashid joining us. Hello. Mr. Frank Dunn from the UK. Hello, Frank. Kingsbury Craft. And I'm going to try and remember. I don't remember where they're from. But hello and welcome. We have Walker Woods Creations. That's Letty in Ohio. This is like really dangerous for me trying to be guessing that. But we're going for it. We have Muhammad joining us. Hello. And hi, Justin, Jeff, Cindy, and Ramona. So I think that's all of the comments. Today is a special episode, and I call it a special episode because Justin's going to be digitizing live, and I get to ask him all sorts of awkward and uncomfortable questions, or just throw popcorn at him.
So yeah, we're going to be talking about Applique today. So just to review what Applique is, it's using actually a material for all or part of your design, usually covering a larger part of the design. So it'll save you on stitches, and it gives it a completely different look. There's a couple different ways that you can do applique, depending on what type of equipment you have. If you want to pre-cut your design, if you want to cut in the hoop, depending on what kind of material that you're using, there's all kinds of different things you could do with applique. I know, like if you have a laser, that's something that you can cut applique, whether it's twill or different materials you can cut prior to running your design. You start getting into, I guess, cottons and stuff like that. Can you cut cotton clean with a laser?
Yeah, you can. My experience, because I have experience with this. Hello, face masks of 2020. You can cut cotton with a laser. It does char just a little bit, not enough that you're going to see it in applique, but I know for sure that I would let it like air out.
Gotcha.
The smell would always go away, but it would have just a little bit of singed cotton smell to it.
Gotcha. So yeah, again, depending on the material, there's different probably different ways that work a little bit different or a little bit better with different materials. You could even, if you have a cutter like a CAD cutter, you can cut different twills. Especially you need to have some type of carrier on there for you to hold the twill in place when you're using a cutter. And we do have a special guest as well coming in. It's the nerd from the north.
Special is right.
What's going on, Mike?
I don't know. I'm here because I heard there was going to be a raffle.
There was?
Apparently there's going to be a raffle.
Oh.
I don't know.
No, we invited Mike on because I know he does a lot of applique work. He does a lot of cool designs I've seen on his social medias and whatnot. So maybe he can lend a little insight and throw some popcorn as well with Jeff.
Oh yeah.
Well, before we go too far, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do a shameless plug because I feel like I can do a shameless plug. Mr. Mike Muldowney just opened up a new web store with 3 products, and I'm going to do my best to remember all 3 of them. The first one is it's a sheet metal product that he's manufacturing for holding your thread spools. You can mount it to your wall, and the spool holders fold out, I guess, and you can set them all on your spools on the spool holders.
Yep.
He has a revolutionary magnetic bobbin where you put a magnet in your bobbin case. Stop me when I'm wrong. And the bobbins, it helps create the tension that you get from magnetic bobbins with a regular steel bobbin.
Yep.
And third is he's offering Mighty Hoop size cut stabilizer.
And a few other sized hoops too.
And a few other sized hoops too.
Yeah.
Did I get all three of them right?
Yeah, that was pretty much it. Hey, and I did not ask for this. I didn't know Jeff was going to do that. So
I didn't know Mike was going to be here. So like the whole didn't know. But I'm going to see if I can find a link to Mike's web store, and we'll drop that in the comments.
Check it out. We actually just we placed an order with Mike because we're going to outfit our whole thread wall and replace all the broken wooden pegs that we have up there that were hanging on by a string and taped and whatnot. So
yeah, I'm very excited about getting some of this stuff out there because I've been playing with it for a while and it seems to be working. So
nice.
So I think not everything is right for everybody, but for the people that want to give it a try, I think they'll find that it helps out in the shop. So
nice.
Yeah,
I can tell you that I do have the magnetic bobbin thing, and it's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Wow,
it does help.
That. Yeah. Hey, does it work in a ZSK? Frank wanted to know.
Yes, it does.
Hey, there we go.
I want to say the bobbin cases they're slightly larger. I can't remember off the top.
Yeah, they're like L plus or something.
Yeah,
but it still seem to work.
They still seem to work. Yeah, for the because you get metal. The bobbins, from what I understand, the bobbins won't work. The metal bobbins that come with your kit, but the machine comes with metal bobbins that work with the magnet.
Well, as long as they're steel, they'll go.
Yep, they're steel. So
yeah, okay. This isn't supposed to be a commercial for me. Let's.
No, we're gonna focus all of the whole next 45 minutes on the Chief Peanut over at T Kilo.
Hey, we can. It's your show.
Here's a question that I'll get us back on topic here. Tackle twill versus applique. What I've seen those terms used interchangeably. What I've learned since I've been in the industry since the dinosaurs ran the earth, tackle twill was usually referring to kind of the athletic look where it's just a zigzag edge that sews down the twill to the jerseys or whatever it may be. Applique being the finished edge where you're actually finishing the edges with solid satin stitches. So a lot of the tackle twill was done on sewing machines back in the day because the twill was actually cut to shape and then it was actually placed and layered on top of each other and just tacked down with a zigzag stitch around the edge. So those are the two differences I see that I've always been taught. I think they're used interchangeably now, though. Most of the time, applique is, I think, more widely used as far as a term, but it can refer to both because you can have an applique with a loose zigzag stitch edge, and then you can have one that has a solid satin stitch edge. So,
see, I like Barb's definition.
What's that?
The last one here. I would say anything you can cut out and sew around is applique.
Okay.
It's a thread replacement technique,
right?
And, one that elevates the decoration far above standard thread only embroidery. It's one of the reasons it's my favorite thing to do is because I can charge twice as much and it takes half the time.
Yeah, and then you
I'm gonna call Justin out here too. Justin is going to have to post a picture of his jacket that he did applique on. From that you know which one I'm talking about? You put the JA logo on it.
Oh, I don't have it here, but I'll definitely.
You're gonna have to post a picture of that later.
Yeah, I'll do that. I guess tackle twill back in the day was more functioning sewing that twill on to the shirt, and the twill was actually the design. Next to applique, the borders work as detail and actual borders that are part of the design. So I think that's the big difference between the two.
Yeah. It comes kind of from the collegiate sports world too,
right?
Where it's super, super popular for schools and teams and stuff because it can be put on so fast.
He did such a great job at clicking that button that he just disappeared. I mean, I can tell you whenever I think about it, and you start thinking about college, it's numbers, jersey letters, and
right? Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah.
Justin, you're back.
That was my bad.
I was going to say that was the quickest accidental Microsoft updates return ever.
No, I guess I have a back button on my mouse for the browser.
Yeah. I've found that one myself. I thought you just rebooted your car's extended warranty, but that'll.
My bad. Anyways, let's get into this. I do now have to share my screen again since I
accidentally deleted us off of it.
Yes.
Someday I'm going to get a better camera placement so it actually looks like I'm paying attention to you guys.
So you just have to move your webcam to the right.
Yeah, but then it's in the middle of the screen and I can't see anything. All right. Look at this.
So here's our special uber duper special Halloween applique design.
Mm-hmm.
So this is sized in a pretty good sized design. It's about 6 inches wide. And typically you want to do appliques in designs that are going to have a larger area, especially if you're doing in the hoop cutting. Trying to do really intricate designs, especially in smaller designs when you're trying to, especially doing the in hoop cutting, it's really hard to get into those little areas. Cut those corners really sharp. When you're cutting that material out. So yeah, typically the applique is done with larger designs, with a larger area. And like Mike said, a lot of times you're doing that not only for just the look of it, but to actually reduce the amount of stitches that you're going onto a garment. Saves times on the machine, saves stitches. And sometimes, depending on the garment, you don't want to put, 80,000 stitches on it, so you're going to save the garment as far as the pulling and the puckering on the garment itself when you are laying a applique material on there.
So much less trauma to the garment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like I said, this is about 6 inches wide. I'm going to go ahead and measure the horns here.
So let me ask you this, Justin. Is there a size, when you start getting into the smaller size of things, what's the smallest size you would suggest doing an applique on as far as an object?
Well, when you have a more simple shape, that's not going to have a lot of like corners and crevices to get into, I think you can get away with going into a smaller size. Some patches are done as appliques. So, a circle or a square, something that's 3-4 inches, it's not going to be a big deal to cut those edges out when you're doing the in the hoop cutting.
Yeah.
There are some times where I do applique and there might be, some really sharp corners where there's some smaller areas that you kind of have to get your scissors into. If you're trying to do that on a scale that's like 3 inches and then that space that you're trying to remove that applique is only a couple millimeters wide, you're going to have a really hard time cutting that excess material out of those little tight corners.
This is why CAD cutters and lasers are worth their weight in gold.
Yeah. Exactly. If you are getting into that and you know they're not only the size restrictions, but also the issues of those little tight corners, pre-cutting the material is definitely going to be a lot easier as far as trying to cut away that excess, because you're going to have a lot more precision using a laser or a CAD cutter or something like that, and it's going to cut it to the exact size that you need to apply your applique.
Yeah.
So I'm going to caveat this: if you have a digitizer and you want to cut applique on a plotter or a laser or something, that's a good thing to tell them.
Yes. It's very easy for us, especially which I'll show you in a few minutes here, the shape that you're going to be using as your edge or your cut line or your placement line, that's very easily changed into a vector line. So you can use that to use in your cutting mechanism. So definitely some good information to give when you are asking for applique. Knowing if you're going to pre-cut, cut in the hoop. Those are the type of things that a digitizer needs to know to make sure they give you the right file types and the right elements in your file.
Yeah, I've done some stupid small stuff with pre-cut, but only because it served the design. Nothing standalone. But I've done some where I've had to do some ultra tiny pieces where basically it just gets covered over by the tack down stitch.
Gotcha.
All by itself. But yeah, only when it serves the design.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go ahead and just decide now that my applique material is going to be just the orange area. Everything else, the green, the black outline, the highlights, the horns, I'm going to go ahead and do with regular embroidery. Just like a lot of designs, I tend to start with a global underlay. That's going to just make sure that your material is laying flat everywhere. They're not going to have any type of areas that pinch, maybe if you're having different stitch angles coming together.
And bubble.
Yeah, bubbles. And since we are going to be, this whole area is going to be the applique material, we have a lot of area that we can use that's going to be up underneath the top stitches, underneath the applique material, and it's not going to be showing. So it's a good opportunity to go ahead and just lay a foundational underlay. And that's basically just using a run stitch that I'm going to change the stitch length to a longer stitch length.
Smoothing the tablecloth.
Exactly. And there's not a set pattern or anything that I typically use, just so I'm going kind of in the same direction to kind of smooth it out, like Mike was just saying. I usually go one direction and then come back another direction. When using a global underlay on something like hats, I pay attention a little bit more as far as the travel distance or the travel directions that I go.
Yeah.
This is kind of just, like I said, just smoothing down that material. And since I know I'm going to be kind of building this from the back forward, I know I can end over here so I can do this horn. And again, this horn's going to be embroidery, so I know I can go ahead and lay that part down since it is going to be kind of tucked underneath this applique part.
Okay, Justin. So now I'm going to throw popcorn at you because, well, I was invited to throw popcorn at you. When you run your global underlay, what color would you want to run that?
Well, knowing that it's going to be underneath the orange applique, and I would say that something that you're going to, as far as a material you're going to be using that's orange, is typically going to be opaque enough that you're not going to see the anything through it. I usually just, if I know it's going to be all underneath something that's not going to show through and it's not high contrasting underneath other stitches, I just use the first color that I'd be using, which is
or if it's like a generic kind of middle of the road gray or something.
Exactly. But if for any reason I was laying down some underlay and these horns were going to be white and my first color that I was starting with was red, I wouldn't run any red underlay underneath those white stitches, because that contrast, you're going to see that global underlay.
Yeah.
Fun fact, you will see it in glow in the dark thread. If you run glow in the dark thread as your global underlay, you will see it when the lights go out.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Neat.
That is neat.
Yeah.
Hidden messages in the underlay.
I got to try
messages.
that. So I am just going to be using a standard fill or tatami stitch for the fill of this horn. Let's do this dark red. I typically digitize in a higher contrast stitch color just so I can see the artwork in the background. And for registration purposes, I am going to digitize kind of this section over here and then kind of go back and do the other section. Larger designs, when you have a bigger span between the objects, I tend to add a little bit more color changes just because if you are, embroidering something over here to the fill stitch and then you come back to the other side that's, a good 6 inches away. Sometimes by the time you get back
Yeah.
to the line of the first element, you're going to have some.
Yeah. We've all said on numerous occasions that a travel stitch is going to be faster than a trim and a frame movement until it gets to be a little bit too far away.
Right. Yeah. That's at a point where registration in your end product is a little bit more important than the speed on your machine.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the decisions that you can make to make sure that your production time is more efficient is your first choice. But yeah, making sure that the end product is going to look better or look good is definitely trumping the
Yeah. Final product is far more important than saving a few seconds
Exactly.
within reason. I mean, everything within balance.
I'm all over the place. I'm digitizing on a computer. I usually don't digitize on, so.
Oh.
New computer time?
No, I'm just digitizing from the office computer, which is a Mac, and I'm on Parallel, so all my hotkeys and whatnot are not programmed. So again, just kind of going through, doing the horn first, coming back and using the column C on Wilcom, which is basically, since I know this is a uniform outline, uniform width, I can use that where you're just plotting down the center point, and then I can set the actual width to it. Come in here and fix these. That end is a little wonky there. So set the colors for that.
Okay, I like this question, so I'm going to bring it up.
Sorry, I wasn't even watching the question. Sorry, everybody.
Felipe says, "What's everyone's preferred method of pre-cutting? Vinyl cutter being cheaper, but laser allowing for kiss cuts of multiple stacked layers at once.
Me.
Laser being more expensive." Well, okay. Mike, what do you think?
I love my eyeline. It's a flatbed cutter, so it's kind of like a Cricut on steroids. It goes fast. It does kiss cut. It works so well for doing twill, and it should, because that's what it was designed to do. Sadly, they don't make them anymore. I just learned about this new 24-inch wide Cricut that came out or something like that. I haven't had any time to look into that, but that's a good option. If you've got the money and the space, laser's the way, though.
But dun dun dun, you can't really kiss cut on the laser because it is a beam of light. It will go straight through.
So from what I've done on my little itty bitty Chinese K40, it's just a matter of dialing the power up and down to only kiss that top layer. Like I've gotten to where I was doing. Well, you've done those IR reflective patches, right?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So to put the fabric over top of those, what I've had to do is I've had to put like the heat adhesive that you would put on the back of any other patch on the back of the fabric, and then put that into my laser and cut out the design. And I've got it to where it'll cut the fabric and the glue, but leaves the paper intact. So, I mean, it's a lot of fiddling around, but it can be done. So in between a base layer of standard twill and then additive layers of the peel and stick like from stalls or something like that. And a bunch of experimentation. Kiss cutting on the laser, I think, can be done, and eventually is the way we're all going to be doing it, because it'll be the piece of equipment that does all that kind of stuff in most shops.
So apparently Trotec has a tutorial on how to do it on their laser.
There we go. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look. I have not.
Yeah.
I've not ever tried. I have seen some people like put glass and cut their twill on top of glass. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
People get creative. What is it? Necessity is the mother of all invention.
Yep. But yeah, I'm gonna run my eye line until it positively will not run anymore.
And then he's gonna come pick up one in Iowa and run it until it won't.
Well, that might be before. Might have two.
It's called spare parts.
Yeah, this is just a logistical problem, Jeff. I mean, it's gonna happen.
I mean, I've got a friend in the shipping department.
Shipping department?
Yeah.
So
okay. Since you guys were chatting, I will explain where I was going with this here. So, just for sake of argument, I'm going to digitize this in that we are going to in the hoop cut.
Yeah.
So first thing, when I get to the applique part, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down the outline to where I want to cut my applique. And typically I just go just to the outside of center, to the outside of the outline, just to ensure that there is enough overlap to make sure that that material is not going to pull away from the inside of that border once we sew that satin. So the first line is going to be, which I labeled it, it's going to be a trace line or placement line. I do my start and stop points at the top here. I know there's certain functionality as far as in Wilcom, there is a built-in applique setting where I can actually set this this line to be an applique, and it'll build all those layers for me. It'll build the placement line, the tack down line. But just for, again, argument's sake, for those that aren't using Wilcom, I'm not going to use the preset options there. But I do the top and bottom, or the start and stop at the top here. And that way, when at the end, when you are putting in the stops of your machine, your hoop is going to be exposed, and your needle bar is going to be at the top of your hoop. There is a function where you can actually put a jump stitch out here, so it does, move the pentagraph even further out to expose the whole area. I think that's a matter of preference on how you like that done.
Honestly, for me, it depends on how many of whatever it is I'm doing. If I'm doing one or two appliques, no, I'm a pre-cut guy. But even if I was doing a cut in the hoop or a cut in place, if it's just one or two, I'm just going to yank the hoop out. Like, let the machine stop. Don't shut it off. Just pull the hoop out. Be careful. Be gentle.
Right.
And do what I got to do, and then slip it back in. If it's more than that, then I'll probably do a manual offset on the machine and actually run the frame out and then return it back to where it was before I hit start again. If it's a real serial production thing, then I'll go through the trouble of setting an automatic offset and letting the machine bring the pentagram out every time,
right,
for each placement. Which it becomes more about job planning at that point.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
less fun, like something like a Halloween doodad or something like that. It just needs to be fun. So just when it stops, just yank the hoop out, get your scissors going, and
yeah.
So one thing I've noticed with when you do set that frame out position in your software, when you load it on your machine, it counts in the design size. So if you have a machine that will only allow you to sew within the hoop, and you want that to frame out past the hoop, it's going to cause you issues.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. That's another thing too. Yeah. I mean, I typically just make sure that it's at the top of the design. If you do your stop and start points at the end of or at the bottom of the design, your design's now going to be back behind your needle bars. So no matter what, you're going to have to take that off. Again, how intricate and how much cutting you have to do. Can you do that when the hoop's sitting on the machine? or is it easier just to pull off and make your cuts and put it back on?
Yep. My fingers and scissors are always way too fat. Anytime I've ever tried, the cutting just looks so bad.
I take everything off the machine because I can't cut in the hoop with it anywhere near the machine. It has to be off and on my table.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's typically the easiest way.
I think getting fancy like hot knives and stuff like that built onto the machine. Like Vitor's got that hot air powered cutter or machine mounted lasers, and that's major stuffs.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so yeah, your first line is going to be the placement line or the trace line. You just duplicate that line, and so it's in the exact same place. So you'll do your trace line. You'll lay down your material. You'll hit start again. The next line is going to be your cut line. So that's going to basically get a tack down the material around the edge, so you know where you're going to cut the excess material off. So again, you put another stop in your color sequence. You'll cut the excess out as close as you can to that tack down line or that cut line. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and lay down a zigzag stitch. Some people use E-stitches, or I don't know which one you guys prefer. I typically go with a zigzag just because that was kind of the go-to stitch back when I learned how to do these.
Yeah, I do zigzag more often than not. The E-stitch, I like when that one's inside out.
Yeah.
Exposed?
No, exposed. Actually, when I do exposed, if I'm just doing like a sports jersey or something, I do the zigzag and stop. I don't even do a full coverage satin.
Gotcha.
But the E-stitch I like when it's a flimsier fabric. Like if I'm maybe using poplin or jersey material or something like that, because I don't know, maybe I made this up in my head, maybe I didn't, but I think the E-stitch kind of pulls that fabric out just a little bit with every stitch.
Gotcha.
As opposed to the zigzag that kind of pushes its way around the whole thing.
There is the applique stitch in Wilcom. It's almost like half run, half zigzag. When it tacks it down, it's not one that they have an option as a stitch type that you can do that without using their applique tool. But I like that one.
Oh, that's built into the automatic applique.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just for ease and understanding, the zigzag here I'm going to use just to make sure that the applique material is going to be tacked down good and solid, and it's going to be ready for the rest of it to be sewn over the
Yeah. But you really got to watch your start and stops and make sure you have underlay turned off, or else you get some real ugly travels and other runs going on.
Now, because orange is kind of a contrasting stitch and that green is going to be embroidery, I'm actually going to cut off this portion of the tack down because my next stitches are going to be the green right here. So that green's going to actually be used to tack down that top edge of the pumpkin. So, but like Mike said, making sure that my start and stop, you're going to want to start and stop at opposite ends, and that way there's no travel stitches or underlay, forcing an underlay back. If you were to do the start and stop on one side, that's going to want to travel one direction to come back and stop here, as you can kind of see in there.
Yeah,
there's actually a travel stitch, which
there's one right there.
Yeah, which is going to be a center walk, essentially. So definitely.
So I'm going to grab this from Cindy. It says, also depending on the type of fabrics you are using for your applique, the zigzag can let little fibers pop up.
Yep. Yeah. So definitely different factors as far as what type of material you're using and exactly what you're trying to achieve. So, but like
what kind of treatment, I guess, the fabric has, because you have fabric with heat sealed backing, fibers tend not to come up. I think Madeira has a product called Applique Magic or Wonder that you iron onto the back of the fabric and it makes it peel and stick.
Oh, okay. Never tried that one.
Nor I.
You guys are missing out.
So I'm doing the little green area of my pumpkin here. I'm going to do a few different angles just to kind of get some dimension on my little pumpkin top here. And again, this fill area is going to actually work as the tack down of the top of the pumpkin, so you don't have to worry about it loosening or anything like that. So you got those two pieces. Oops. And come back with a satin for this little highlight of the stem.
You didn't change the angle on that second green fill. Otherwise, why did you bother doing it in two pieces?
I thought I did. Or did I not?
I don't know. My eyes playing tricks on me? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, it is a little different. Yeah, sorry. My bad. Yeah. Don't mind me.
Just a hair.
Yeah. So come to the show, Mike. Don't look like an idiot, Mike. Okay.
Colors here. Get my colors to be kind of jiving with the art.
Nice.
Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. All right. So typically what I'm going to do is I knew this area is going to be not only working as the tack down of the top of the applique, but it needs to be laid down before I do that final outer border of the applique. I'm going to go ahead and do that again for registration purposes. I'm not going to worry about any of the interior stuff. I want to make sure that I get to that border as soon as possible in the process, just to make sure there's any excess shifting or whatnot is going on before I get to that border. So a nice bold border. I'll come through and fix points later. Again, just using that column C tool in Wacom, so I can just plot right down the center. And I can also make sure that I set the width, so it's going to be making sure to kind of cover.
So Cindy has a question, Justin.
Yes.
Back to fabrics. Do y'all have a backing or adhesive so when you finish your item, then you can press it?
So after it's done, you press the applique?
Mm-hmm.
Well, wouldn't that be like the BSN?
Or like a heat seal that you put on the
backside.
Yeah,
I know you can buy the pressure sensitive tools from like places like Stalls that have it built into the back.
Yeah, so, they already laid it on there for you.
Yeah, so after you do the applique part, you can press it. Typically, when we're going on heavier duty jackets, we'll use the pressure sensitive stuff, and that way we can make sure to press the jackets afterwards.
Yeah.
What about you, Mike?
Yes, no.
Maybe.
I use a lot of coated twill from Stalls because they just make it so easy to get here in Canada. For a few reasons. One, when I cut it on the eyeline or the cricket I've done even, it doesn't fray as bad. The coating on the backside keeps the fabric in check. Not quite as cauterized as a laser does, but it does really well. That backing is also meant to be heat pressed down, but even Stalls will say, heat press it and stitch it for maximum securement or whatever you want to call it.
Securement.
So rarely have I gone back and heat pressed afterwards, but that option certainly is available depending on what fabric you choose. I've got a roll of I don't even know where it came from. I'm gonna be really sad when it's gone. I've got a roll of heat applied stabilizer that I put onto the back of real light duty or fiber C fabrics if I'm cutting those out, because then the cutter has something to actually bite into and doesn't just shred the fabric all to snot. But then once that's ironed on, it's over. There's no adhesive on the backside, so it's stitched down and stitched down only.
So a fusible stabilizer.
Yeah, but it's heavy, so it ends up being like a at least 1.5 2 ounce cutaway with a fusible layer on it.
Okay.
I don't know where it came from, but it is awesome stuff, and I'm gonna be some bummed when I can't find it when I run out. It's just one of those acquisitions with equipment.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but yeah, that option is usually there if you need it. Even the pressure sensitive stuff like the peel and stick, it can also be heat pressed afterward for a more permanent adhesion.
Yeah, I think it's Twill USA that sells the peel and stick by itself. So you just heat press it, and then it's got a carrier sheet on it. You can.
Oh, is it them? Okay, right on.
I had somebody send some to me once. It was interesting, and it worked, but I didn't know that was something that you could like actually heat press, still have it be peel and stick.
Yeah, so I would do that mostly on jersey letters or numbers or things like that. Something where I'm specifically running around the outside with just a zigzag just to make it fast, and then heat press it down after, because that'll really bite it in there. This design Justin's working on right now is actually a really good example of where you don't need to, because that outside's getting sewn down, and then there's a whole bunch of central elements getting added in. That stuff isn't going anywhere.
No.
So there's no need to bother heat pressing this down afterward. Plus, it stays a little bit softer if you don't glue it down, because it lets the fabrics move with each other instead of being one stiff unit.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's great because people are talking about different kinds of backing in the back in the comments, and I'm Googling a lot of them. A lot of stuff I haven't heard of.
We got to have a talk with Ramona about calling herself old all the time. Stop doing that.
All right. So, I went ahead and plotted that outer border. I gave it a little bit more of a kind of a hefty feel to it to make sure that it's going to cover that zigzag and that tack down. I'll move those to the forefront so you can see. It's making sure that it's fully covering on both sides to make sure that you're not going to have any of the maybe any of the material that you may not have cut really, really close to, as far as your excess off, any of the zigzag stitches or the tack down stitches, so they don't show. So to make sure that I always give that little extra column or satin width when digitizing the edges for applique.
Okay, so just so that I show, I'm trying to catch all the questions because I really am. Ramona says, Justin will use a lighter density fill with that fill for the shadowing.
I thought about it. I think it really depends on what type of material you're going to be using for the applique, whether that looks good or not. It definitely. What am I doing here? I lost my train of thought. The shadowing, there's a lot of times where I'll use kind of a lighter fill. I'll turn the underlay off, turn the fill to a lighter fill for shadowing. I think it might kind of give it a good effect.
Okay. Cindy asked.
Don't forget the thread's going to catch the light a different way than the fabric anyway.
Right.
So even if your fabric and your thread is an exact match, they're going to look different. It's going to give some dimension even if they're the same color.
Exactly.
So you don't really need to play around with fills unless you're just trying to lighten the load a little bit.
So Cindy asked, what happens after you wash the design? if you don't fuse it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I haven't had any of my stuff long enough to really know yet. I've seen some of my earlier stuff that I didn't do very well. I've seen it like kind of start to pucker a little bit, but as I got a little bit better at what I was doing, I haven't really noticed there be a problem. If there's ever a concern, like if you got one of those customers that is going to say something, if absolutely anything goes wrong, take the extra 30 seconds and throw it in the heat press. Yeah. It also sets all the stitches and everything too, so that's kind of nice as well.
Yeah, I think it depends a lot on the types of fabrics that you use together. If
Absolutely.
you're using something that, like if you're trying to use a spandex as a material for applique, it's going to pull in, it's going to pucker when you wash it, versus if you're using like a quilting cotton that doesn't really move.
Yeah.
But let me keep going down.
I kind of like it when it happens, to be honest with you. I think it starts to give the garment a little bit of character. It shows it's been around. Yeah.
All right. So Antonio asks, are there any classes on how to digitize live? This one. And in 2 weeks, there'll be another one. As far as live, like actually in person, there are some at trade shows. If you go to trade shows, I know Justin is going to be teaching in Long Beach. Can I say that yet? I mean, I just did. So
Cat out of the bag.
Cat out of the bag.
Awesome.
But if you're looking for digitizing live and in-person classes, it's going to be at some type of trade show or event where they're going to be bringing somebody in to actually teach that type of a class. I know like Lisa Shaw travels to different areas and she teaches too. But for the most part, if you're looking for like actual live in person, it's going to be at some type of a trade show. Cindy asks, are you using for the black areas, are you using fabric too? I think you're just going to stitch over those, right?
Yeah, I'm just going to stitch. Again, depending on your project and how much time you want to put in cutting out the little intricate areas, I would just be more prone to stitch that part.
Yeah.
All right. We have a question. What type of stabilizer or how many sheets would you need for a cotton shirt with this design?
Ooh.
No pressure, Justin.
I'll let you guys handle that one while I finish this up.
Well, it's roughly like right now I can see it's about 20,000 stitches.
Yeah.
I'd be at least a 3-ounce cutaway. I might float a tearaway underneath it. What about you, Mike?
I'm probably going to have the unpopular opinion here. I would go the exact opposite direction. Normally when I'm doing an applique design, it is specifically to reduce the amount of trauma to the garment and bulk and other things. So depending on the project, if it's appropriate, I might go as far as to do all of these sewing elements off garment. And then the whole thing will get sewn on as one big applique. And when I do that, I will put that down as just a tearaway. Because then when I'm done, I rip it away, and on the inside, all I've got left is the stitches around the outside, and you can't feel anything else, and it keeps the garment as original as possible.
Now that is one technique that we did not discuss in the beginning. So now you're actually creating an applique to work as a patch, basically.
Yeah, pretty much big patch. But and usually it's a mix and match of everything, and it all depends on what you're putting it on and what the intended use is, how long the garment's expected to live, all kinds of other things. But like if it was a t-shirt, I probably honestly I wouldn't do it at all.
So
because I don't like putting stuff this heavy on a t-shirt, but on a hoodie, I would do just tearaway.
I mean, even in the comments, see, we've got Ramona who says she would use the no-show poly mesh on a t-shirt front. And and Cindy would use one piece of heavy cutaway. So it can vary based off of who you asked and what their preferred technique is.
Yeah, none of those are wrong answers.
And the weight of the t-shirt. You get
Yep.
a really heavyweight cotton tee, it's gonna take some more stitches than something that's a softer,
Yep.
brush cotton or something like that, or a I can't remember the term.
Like a ring spun.
Ring spun, yeah. Cottons, some of the softer cottons. But yeah, as far as t-shirts, I like that idea that Mike's saying. Produce the applique material, so all that heavy stitching is done on the material itself. Cut it out, and all you're doing is all the t-shirt is taking is that tack down stitch too.
Yeah, that makes it a lot easier to cut too, because you can just run a single run stitch where you want to cut it.
Yeah, you do instead of starting with your placement and your stitch down and then cutting it in the hoop. You do all your other elements first and do that run stitch around the outside very last after the fabric's done pulling and pushing and moving wherever the hell it's going to go. Then you unhoop it and just cut around that outside, and then you put it down like a patch. And
Nice.
He's right. It is more work, but it all depends on what the goal is.
Yeah,
that's definitely it. And Barb says that she would use 2 layers of no-show mesh and 1 layer of tearaways. I guess it's how much bulk you want to add to the garment. And I personally don't like embroidering t-shirts just for that reason. I feel like they're light. You don't want to add anything to them.
Yeah. I'm not a fan either.
Yeah, I feel t-shirts are for printing and pretty much everything else for embroideries.
Yeah.
So that was our quick Halloween applique.
Look at that.
I'm going to clean up a few areas that I kind of rushed through, and I will have it posted for free for everybody to download if you want to play around with it and make some stuff.
So I'm gonna grab this. I'm gonna grab this comment before we go. So would you make another file with the outline stitch for the size?
If you were setting up for a pre-cut, because some softwares work off of a stitch file to do your cut line. Like eyeline or something like that. That's how I get cut files into my eyeline. I just bring in my DXF and it pulls the very first layer.
I don't remember what software it is, but there is one software that you actually import the I think it's Matt for his CCD.
Oh, really?
He can import the DST file.
Wow, awesome. Wow. Yeah. So yes, sometimes depends. It depends on what you need and how you're cutting or how you're not cutting. Yeah. Mark.
It's called Digitizing 911.
So Mark, Matt has already beat you to this because there has some Digitizing 911s that we found out that were Matt's designs that he wanted done. So I'm gonna throw Matt under the bus.
Some of his ghost accounts. Oh, what do I do? Send it over.
But yeah, that was fun. I love Halloween myself. I love all this time of year and designs of. I have my head full of different designs that I still have yet to do. So maybe.
See, I think if I lived in Arizona, I would enjoy the winter too.
Winter? What is that?
That's when it's not as hot in your area. Like here,
that's when we get a break from construction.
Yeah,
that's when it's warm here. Is winter.
Yeah. Oh, you guys, you're spoiled, you Southerners.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and close this out unless you guys have any announcements.
I think that's it now. We might have some more announcements later on, but like Jeff said, I'll be in Long Beach in January. Not too sure. I know at least one class, if not a couple of them, so I'm excited about that.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and drop Mike's store one more time in the comments. So Mike has released a couple of products that I definitely recommend you guys go check out. Shipping at least to the United States and Canada.
And probably soon to be England.
But
Yeah.
With that, guys, that is Mike Muldowney, the nerd in the north from Tequila. There you go.
Yeah.
And that's Justin Armenta from Digitizing Studios. And I'm Jeff Fuller from Fuller Embroidery Works. And we're all here representing the Embroidery Nerd. I'd like to thank you guys for hanging out with us, and we'll catch you next time.
That was a lot of fun, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.